Not about the gracious part, but about the.
I will get out of
Just to follow up on your answer to Senator Warner, Dr. Sirin, when you say the $600 billion is just sitting there, what do you mean it's just sitting there?
What I mean is that today, the difference between the taxes that are owed based on the tax law that is on the books and what the IRS is able to collect is around $600 billion a year. Left unaddressed over the course of the next decade, that's going to be $7.8 trillion that disproportionately comes from a tax evasion benefit to the top 1%.
And that's what I was going to ask you about. So so you're saying that $600 billion that is owed, and it's known that it's owed.
Correct. And that's actually an understatement of true evasion in the economy, because we know that high-income individuals and complex partnerships are able to hide their income even from the audits we use to measure the tax
And
gap.
and so how is that 600 billion? I mean, can you talk just a little bit about how that's calculated in this sense? You know, are you talking about people that have filed with the IRS and obscured the reality of their tax liability, or are you talking about people that just have never filed with the IRS? How to add up that 600 billion?
Absolutely. So what I'm talking about, where the IRS has relatively good measurements of evasion, is with respect to the individual income tax gap, where it does random audit studies and it looks at the difference between what you report or whether or not you file and what you actually owed. But what we know is that the top of the distribution isn't actually even able, it is able to conceal its true income position even from those audits. We know that between 2014 and 2016, 100 of the wealthiest non-filers, people who did the most blatant kind of evasion, which is not even file their taxes, were responsible for $10 billion of lost revenue to the fisc.
And of the 600 billion, that's an annual number.
That is an annual number.
So what is that? Why is that an annual number? That's something, so every year there's the gap that you're talking about.
Correct. Each and every year, we fail to collect around
And what
$600
does that
billion.
mean to the American people? The other taxpayers are actually paying what's owed. If it's 600 billion a year, and then it's another $600 billion a year, and another $600 billion a year.
It creates, and we haven't gotten, I'm so grateful to the question because it's an opportunity to comment on the fact that you have a system where for any new fiscal needs that the government identifies, the only group that bears the costs of those needs are the group of taxpayers that are complying with their tax obligations. So you have a real competitive distortion in the economy where certain types of wealthy taxpayers just don't pay what they owe.
I don't have my calculator with me, but I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, you could pay for a lot of the child tax credit with that $600 billion.
You certainly can, Senator.
If you wanted to. I would, just the remaining time that I have left, I want to thank the chair for holding this meeting. And the reason I want to thank you is that I've talked to families and small businesses all over Colorado, and I've heard that they expect the IRS to work quickly to get Coloradans their returns, which they don't get them, and they expect to have some decent customer support. And you know, the IRS, when we passed the child tax credit, we passed the earned income tax credit, the enhancements to those things, that was a lot of work, but people were able to benefit from that, and they were able to do it in real time. And I think that's because a lot of us were pushing really hard, but I think Coloradans and people all over this country deserve a 21st century tax administrator, one that answers the phone when they call, you know, and that allows them to upload documents electronically. It flags easy to fix errors in their returns. This sounds like hocus pocus or magic, but it's the way a lot of other tax systems in the industrialized world work. It's not the way our system works. And it's one of the reasons, frankly, why it's so easy to get away with the kind of tax fraud that you're talking about, the cheating that you're talking about. And the people that are not benefiting from that are working people who are trying to get the benefit of their credit back from the IRS and can't do it because they haven't been able to get their phone calls returned, or because the agency's running software that was written in the 1960s. And no offense to the 1960s, but I think we can do better than that. So I hope for anything else, Mr. President, out of this, that you're able to pull some of the politics out of this issue, that we can put people back to work so they can be responsive to the people we represent, and we can get on to the matters that really are of concern to the American people, which is having a tax code that actually supports working people and their efforts in an economy where for 50 years, all the benefits have accrued to the people at the very top. So thanks for having me, and thanks for having this hearing.
Sums it up. Thank you. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.